Here are the top stories for today, March 2nd, 2022. President Rodrigo Duterte signs an executive order forming an interagency committee for the protection of refugees, asylum seekers, and stateless individuals amid the continuing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. The Health Department is adopting a new scheme in reporting COVID-19 cases. Bulletins will now be issued weekly, focusing on severe and critical cases. The Interior Department reminds supporters to bring vaccine cards in poll campaign activities, even as more areas are now under the most relaxed Alert Level 1. And Faith Alive, the Lenten season officially starts as Catholics commemorate Ash Wednesday with the sprinkling of ash on foreheads now allowed amid East curbs. Good day, I am William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. President Rodrigo Duterte has given assurances that mitigating measures and contingency plans will be in place as part of the government's proactive response to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Acting presidential spokesperson Carlo Nograles said the president has approved the recommendations of the economic team to strengthen domestic economy, stabilize food prices, and provide social protection.
Food stability. The Chief Executive approved the recommendations of the Department of Agriculture to boost local food production. Kasama na rito ang pagpapataas ng produksyon ng pagkain sa pamamagitan ng pagpapatupad ng Plant Part 2. Pagpapataas ng rice buffer stock na hindi bababa sa 30 araw. Pamamahagi ng tulong pinansyal sa ating mga nagsasaka ng palay at pagtugon sa tumataas na presyo ng abono o pataba, tulad ng pagbibigay ng fertilizer subsidy at market access through bilateral discussions sa fertilizer-producing countries. Inaprubahan din ng Pangulo ang rekomendasyon ng Department of Agriculture sa pamamahagi ng fuel discount vouchers sa mga magsasaka at mga mangingisda bilang tugon sa tumataas na presyo ng langis. Ang pagpapalago ng produksyon at pagpapaigting ng pananaliksik upang ibsan ang presyo ng feeds at pagbibigay ng logistical support gaya ng food mobilization mula sa mga lalawigang mataas na produksyon papunta sa mga syudad sa pamamagitan ng kadiwa ni Ani at Kita, pag-deploy ng kadiwa mobile vans at trucks, at subsidiya sa transportation cost ng mga pangunahing bilihin.
Meanwhile, the palace is calling on lawmakers to review the country's existing oil deregulation law. This is among measures to cushion the impact of soaring oil prices to Filipinos.
On the supply of oil, the President approved the recommendations of the Department of Energy to implement the 2.5 billion Pantawid Pasada and the 500 million fuel discount program for farmers and fisherfolk. For the medium term, we call on Congress to review the oil deregulation law, particularly provisions on unbundling the price and the inclusion of the minimum inventory requirements in the law, as well as giving the government intervention powers or authority to intervene when there is a spike and or prolonged increase of prices of oil products.
President Rodrigo Duterte has issued an executive order institutionalizing access to protection services for refugees, stateless persons, and asylum seekers. The President signed Monday, February 28, Executive Order Number 163, which creates an interagency committee on the protection of refugees, stateless persons, and asylum seekers to assure the provision of relevant services and assistance to persons of concern or POCs under the 2017 Interagency Agreement. It shall be headed by the Secretary of Justice as the chairperson and the Secretary of Social Welfare and Development as vice chairperson. EO 163 directs the committee to continue to coordinate with the judiciary to ensure that POCs have access to courts and the swift administration of justice. Funds for the initial implementation of this order will be charged against the respective budgets of concerned agencies, while funding for succeeding years should be incorporated in the respective appropriations, subject to the usual budget process. The second batch of Filipino repatriates from Ukraine arrived in the country last night. The group consists of 12 adults and 1 baby. They were part of the 40 evacuees who left Kiev for Lviv and were welcomed by Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. at the Poland-Ukraine border. The Philippine Embassy in Warsaw facilitated their travel and flight documents as well as their stay in a hotel in the Polish capital. All the repatriation expenses, including transport expenses, food and accommodation, RT-PCR test, and airfare to Manila were likewise shouldered by the DFA's Assistance to Nationals Fund. The batch brings to 19 the total number of repatriated Filipinos since tensions started in Ukraine. The first 6 arrived in Manila on February 18. Philippine Ambassador to Poland, Leia Basinang Ruiz, said, out of the estimated 350 Filipinos in Ukraine, 215 have reached out to the embassy, while others with families in Ukraine are still reluctant to go home. The second round of peace talks between Russia and Ukraine has begun in the hope of finding a resolution to the standing. The first ceasefire talk that lasted about 5 hours was concluded with no clear breakthrough. Vladimir Medinsky, head of the Russian delegation, said both parties agreed to continue the negotiation process. The second round of talks was held at the Polish-Belarusian border. Meanwhile, the United States is expelling a Russian national who is working with the United Nations Secretariat. Stefan Dujarric, spokesman for the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, has confirmed the decision of the organization in accordance with Section 13B of the United Nations Agreement. Dujarric refused to give any more details in deference to the privacy of the individual concerned and the sensitivity of the matter. Moreover, the United States also announced the expulsion of 12 staff members of the Russian permanent mission to the United Nations. In a statement, the U.S. permanent mission to the United Nations described the 12 Russian diplomats as intelligence operatives who have abused their privileges of residency in the United States by engaging in espionage activities. The U.S. decision to expel 12 Russian diplomats and 1 UN staff member from Russia came amid Russian military operations in Ukraine. PCOO Secretary Martin Andanar assures that government has been providing protection and assistance to our overseas Filipino workers in Hong Kong amid the surge of COVID-19 infections in the Special Administrative Region. In a statement, Andanar said President Rodrigo Duterte is personally saddened knowing the unfortunate plight of some overseas Filipino workers there. He said repatriation services will be mounted for their safe return. He said Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana is now closely coordinating with the Department of Foreign Affairs and our consulate for the deployment of government air assets such as our C-130s and/or chartered commercial flights to be sent for those who want to be repatriated. Starting Monday, March 7, the Health Department will start announcing its report on COVID-19 case bulletin on a weekly basis. In a palace briefing, Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergara said the weekly case bulletins would be released every Monday at 4 p.m. She said timely updates would be provided when necessary. The shift from daily reporting to a compressed weekly update is said to be part of the transition to the new normal.
Baguhin na po natin kung paano po natin nire-release ang ating case bulletin. So starting March 7, that's a Monday next week, we will be issuing a revised case bulletin kung saan mas magpo-focus na po tayo sa severe and critical cases and the utilization in our ICUs. Previously, mga case numbers po kasi ang nilalabas natin, mababago na po. As to the frequency, it's going to be once a week compared to before na araw-araw po ay naglalabas tayo ng case bulletin.
The Health Department is targeting to release its COVID-19 transition plan by next week. In an interview, Health Secretary Francisco Duque III said the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases and the National Economic and Development Authority convened to discuss the country's COVID-19 transition plan. Duque said the new normal roadmap will include all the inputs from the different sectors and will be very comprehensive. Still to come, faith and repentance, Catholics mark the start of Lent on Ash Wednesday. And the Trade Department encourages more on-site work to boost the economy. Details ahead, keep it here on the PNA Newsroom.
Nais mo bang bumalik at magsimula ng panibagong buhay sa inyong probinsya? May solusyon dyan. Bisitahin ang balikprobinsya.ph upang mag-apply. Pero ano nga ba ang Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program o mas kilala bilang BP2? Ang programang ito ay binuo ng gobyerno mula sa EO 114 na naglalayong matugunan ang lumulobong populasyon at pagsikip ng mga residential area sa NCR. Layunin rin ng BP2 na makapagbigay ng pantay na oportunidad sa mga Pilipinong magbabalik probinsya. Ligtas at libre kang makakabalik sa inyong probinsya sa tulong ng BP2. May kasama pang tulong pinansyal at oportunidad para makapagsimula ng pangkabuhayan. Bagong pag-asa ang hatid ng Balik Probinsya program. Kaya naman ano pang hinihintay mo? Mag-register na sa balikprobinsya.ph.
The Catholic Church in the country is dedicating this year's observance of Ash Wednesday to praying for peace in Ukraine. In a statement, Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines President Bishop Virgilio David said the Church invokes the intercession of the Blessed Mother in praying that the Lord move the consciences of the Russian people and pressure their government into stopping war. David said the Lord has taught that there is no other way to combat the enticements of the devil other than prayer, fasting, and acts of charity. Earlier, Pope Francis called on the faithful to mark the beginning of Lent with fasting and prayer for peace in Ukraine. Meanwhile, in Manila, the Minor Basilica of the Black Nazarene, popularly known as the Quiapo Church, welcomed the faithful observing Ash Wednesday as they waived the requirement to present their vaccination cards before they will be allowed inside the church. Parochial Vicar Father Douglas Badong said only 70% seating capacity is allowed. On the other hand, the Archdiocese of Manila reminded the clergy and the religious to strictly implement health protocols as they expect more people to attend the celebration, especially since the alert level in Metro Manila has been relaxed. Churches in Metro Manila and 38 other areas under Alert Level 1 can again be filled up to 100% of their capacity. The Catholic Church also allowed the marking of forehead with ashes. COVID-19 alert levels have been downgraded in parts of the country, but some local government units are retaining tightened protocols. Here is our report.
Amid its shift to Alert Level 1, the city government of Zamboanga has retained the negative RT-PCR requirement for inbound travelers from areas with a higher alert level. Mayor Maria Isabel Climaco Salazar said the negative RT-PCR test results should come out within 120 hours and 24 hours for a rapid antigen from the time of specimen collection. The public is urged to continue practicing minimum health standards and avoid closed spaces, crowded places, and close contact settings. In Naga City, the city government has eased restrictions for indoor and outdoor activities effective Tuesday as Alert Level 1 takes effect. Based on Executive Order Number 2022-009 signed by Mayor Nelson Legacion, establishments and public transportation are allowed to operate at full capacity on-site and seating capacity. Fully vaccinated individuals aged 12 and older, as well as partially vaccinated persons, are allowed to enter enclosed establishments upon presentation of vaccination cards and identification cards. For open-air setting activities, no proof of full vaccination is required. Meanwhile, the provincial government of Sorsogon announced on Monday the reopening of its doors to local and foreign tourists. On March 5, Governor Francis Escudero will lead the blessing and inauguration of the new Bulusan Ecotourism Center and facilities and the Bulusan Eco Adventures at the Bulusan Natural Park, which has been closed since the March 2020 lockdown. Last week, the town of Donsol has reopened its butanding interaction with health protocols in place to ensure the safety of visitors. Meanwhile, the province of Antique has lifted the Safe, Swift, and Smart Passage Travel Management System or SPAS requirement for fully vaccinated tourists and returning residents. The lifting of SPAS will also apply to fully vaccinated authorized persons outside residence. In Pangasinan, establishments, government agencies, and private workplaces can now operate at full capacity, while curfew hours have been adjusted after the Interagency Task Force placed the province under Alert Level 1 from March 1 to 15. However, face masks shall still be worn properly at all times. Meanwhile, the province-wide curfew is now from 12 midnight to 4 a.m. For the PNA Newsroom, I am Marita Muaje.
The Department of the Interior and Local Government reminds participants in election campaign activities to present proof of vaccination against COVID-19 when asked. DILG Undersecretary and spokesperson Jonathan Malaya said those going to campaign rallies, caucuses, and other similar activities should bring their vaccination cards or VaxCert-PH digital certificates. He said that under COMELEC Resolution 10732, campaign activities in areas under Alert Level 1 are allowed up to 70% of the operational capacity of the venue, whether indoor or outdoor. Meanwhile, the Department of Health said COVID-19 cases have not yet increased since the start of the campaign period. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Berjeres said the agency has also not seen an uptick in cases even when some bets held activities ahead of the official campaign period. The campaign period for national candidates officially began on February 8, while the campaign period for local candidates will start on March 25. Almost 1.7 million Filipinos abroad are expected to participate in the overseas absentee voting next month. Based on data from the COMELEC, majority or over 1.67 million are registered as land-based voters. Voters overseas will be voting 1 month ahead of the country from April 10 until Election Day on May 9. Overseas voters will only vote for President, Vice President, 12 senators, and a party list representative. They will vote either by mailing their ballot or personally casting their votes in areas designated by their embassies. In our business news, the Department of Trade and Industry, or DTI, is encouraging more on-site work and lessened work from home setup as the country now moves to the new normal. DTI Secretary Ramon Lopez said urging employees to physically report in their workplaces will stimulate spending and other economic activities. Lopez said small and medium enterprises and the transport sector will benefit from the increased mobility now that Metro Manila and key provinces were de-escalated to Alert Level 1. The DTI chief said the department hopes to bring down the unemployment rate to the pre-pandemic level at around 5%. Lopez added that this would mean some 800,000 jobs will be recovered over time. In line with this, the Bureau of Immigration has enforced a 100% on-site work capacity in all of its offices in areas under Alert Level 1. Commissioner Jaime Morente emphasized that strict health protocols will be observed, including the wearing of face masks and physical distancing. While fully vaccinated individuals will be allowed entry, those who are unvaccinated and partially vaccinated are still required to get appointments online. At the same time, they will no longer adopt work from home as an alternative work arrangement scheme for employees. The Bureau's working hours are from 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. on weekdays except on holidays. More stories from the newsroom. The government is building homes for Dumagat tribes in Aurora and Nueva Ecija, and the Philippine news agency soars to greater heights in its 49th anniversary. Back after a quick break, stay with the PNA Newsroom.
Kung customer ka, pupuntahan mo ba yung mukhang safe naman o yung certified na safe? Ang safety seal ay patunay na certified safe ang iyong business dahil nasusunod ang minimum public health standards. Meron din itong QR code para mapadali ang contact tracing. Ito ay libre lang. Pero, kailangang i-renew every 6 months or every year kung nasa tourism sector ang iyong business. Kung meron ka ng mga documents na ito, pwede ka na mag-apply para sa Safety Seal Certification. May iba-ibang office para sa iba't ibang klase ng mga negosyo. Pag na-determine nyo na ang issuing authority, simple lang ang steps para makuha ang safety seal. Pumunta sa office ng issuing authority o sa kanilang website. Kumuha ng safety seal checklist at magsagawa ng self-assessment para sa iyong business. I-submit ang checklist at abangan ang inspection schedule. Pag na-approve ang application, bibigyan kayo ng safety seal sticker. Pag hindi naman na-approve, sasabihin kung anong health standard ang hindi nasunod at bibigyan kayo ng pagkakataong ayusin ito. Pag nakuha na ang safety seal, ipaskil ito sa may entrance para makita agad ng mga customer. Pwede nyo rin ipagmalaki na certified safe kayo sa inyong mga social media pages. Paalala lamang, ang isang safety seal ay para sa isang branch lang. Siguraduhin bawat branch mo ay certified safe. Siguraduhin din na nasusunod palagi ang minimum public health standards dahil baka mabawi ang iyong certification. Maaring mag-operate kahit na walang safety seal. Pero hindi ba mas mahalagang kampante ang mga customer sa loob ng iyong negosyo? Kaya kumuha na ng safety seal para ingat-angat tayong lahat.
Indigenous Dumagat families in the provinces of Aurora and Nueva Ecija will soon have their own houses. Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development Secretary Eduardo del Rosario spearheaded 2 groundbreaking ceremonies for housing units on Monday. One is for 245 families in Barangay Matawe, Dingalan, Aurora, and the other one is for 95 others in Barangay Malinaw, Gabaldon, Nueva Ecija. Del Rosario said the DHSUD is heeding President Rodrigo Duterte's directive to prioritize indigenous peoples in providing safe, resilient, and affordable housing. He said it was Dingalan Mayor Sherwin Taay who requested for the housing project to relocate IPs living near or within danger zones. The subdivision-like housing projects will be equipped with a drainage system, power and water facilities, and road networks. A permanent evacuation center and multi-purpose covered court in Gabaldon's Barangay Ligaya will also be erected. The military announced a successful dismantling of a New People's Army front following the surrender of its members in Davao de Oro. 13 members of the NPA Guerrilla Front 3 Sub-Regional Committee for Southern Mindanao Regional Committee surrendered to authorities in Barangay Kidawa, Laac Town on February 26. The surrenderers, led by Renard Galos Catarata, the GF3 commanding officer, said their food supplies and strength were exhausted due to the relentless military operations in the area. They also said the SMRC already experienced a leadership vacuum. Brigadier General Jesus Durante III, the Army's 101st Brigade commander, lauded the troops for the accomplishment. He said the dismantling was due to the relentless focused operation in the boundaries of Laac, Davao de Oro, and Loreto, Agusan del Sur since October last year. He also welcomed the rescued personalities of GF3 and thanked them as they returned to the folds of the law. In our news overseas, countries under the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation or APEC are committed to the safe resumption of travel by considering mechanisms to facilitate movement and reconnect business mobility in the Asia-Pacific. APEC Safe Passage Task Force Chair Chai Vaivid said restarting cross-border travel will support economic recovery and re-emphasize APEC's relevancy and efficiency. Chai Vaivid said it is crucial for APEC economies to coordinate policies and move towards harmonization. He said having a set of principles will guide APEC to work towards interoperability and safe and sustainable travel as well as enhance connectivity. The Safe Passage Task Force assessed several proposals and policy actions such as ways to ensure that the resumption of travel will be inclusive and non-discriminatory. Member economies have also discussed mechanisms for information sharing as well as for a one-stop information platform on international travel for the public within the APEC. For 49 years now, the Philippine News Agency has been at the forefront of providing timely, reliable, and truthful information to both local and foreign readers. No less than President Rodrigo Duterte feted the agency for its unwavering commitment to telling stories that inspire change as it soars to greater heights.
The Philippine News Agency has come a long way, especially during the Duterte administration. Now on its 49th year, the PNA has managed to innovate and modernize its operation, more so with the launching of its new website, interface design, and the renovation of its central office headquarters. As the government's official newswire service, PNA has been tapped in the substantive coverage of presidential activities and has been on the front line in covering major events in the Philippines.
I am glad to join the Philippine News Agency on the occasion of its 49th anniversary. I commend the PNA for its strong commitment in providing reliable news and information to our people. As you mark this milestone, may you all remain steadfast to upholding excellence and truth as you help maintain a well-informed and socially responsible society. Again, happy anniversary at mabuhay kayong lahat.
The PNA is a division of the News and Information Bureau or NIB, one of the attached agencies of the PCOO currently headed by Secretary Martin Ruperto Andanar. NIB Director Virginia Arcilia Agtay, who is also a journalist himself, said she understands the need to strengthen PNA as a government media organization.
We always take pride in saying that beyond the physical structure's facelift is an editorial team that learned to adapt to the times and embrace the need for enormous transformation. This undoubtedly speaks for President Rodrigo Duterte's and Secretary Andanar's vision. As PNA marks its 49th year, inching closer to its golden age, it is my fervent hope that you sustain its evolution to being purposeful storyteller, hope giver, and healer beyond basic reportage. Ensure that each one develops the habit of acquiring skills, the knowledge, and abilities to help become better at your jobs.
PNA Supervising Undersecretary Joel C. Egco, who is also hosting its own broadcast show, Pros and Cons, congratulated the people behind the PNA for keeping up to its mandate of delivering fair, balanced, and timely news.
I'm really honored to be part of the Philippine News Agency. Even as it's parang tagatingin lang, overseer since 2017. And I'm very glad that I was able to work with you guys. I agree, I concur. You are very, very professional. Wala naman po natin ng problema And in fact, every time I speak in front of our friends in the media, laging ang barometer ko is PNA. So, kumbaga, kahit sa benefits man lang, and look at the skills level of people in PNA, wish ko nga maging ganun din sa private media.
For the PNA Newsroom, I am Marita Muaje.
Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. President Rodrigo Duterte signs an executive order forming an interagency committee for the protection of refugees, asylum seekers, and stateless individuals amid the continuing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. The Health Department is adopting a new scheme in reporting COVID-19 cases. Bulletins will now be issued weekly, focusing on severe and critical cases. The Interior Department reminds supporters to bring vaccine cards in poll campaign activities, even as more areas are now under the most relaxed Alert Level 1. And Faith Alive, the Lenten season officially starts as Catholics commemorate Ash Wednesday with the sprinkling of ash on foreheads now allowed amid East curbs. As Filipinos, we all have a vital role to play in preventing the spread of COVID-19. So remember, wear your face masks and face shields, wash your hands often, practice safe physical distancing, go out only for essential reasons, and get vaccinated as soon as possible to protect ourselves, our families, and the community. Together, we can beat COVID-19. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. For more news content, check our webpage or log on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, we tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day, everyone.